Shwmae, Borda and Croeso I Beddgelert. So hello, good morning and welcome to a really beautiful place in the heart of Eryri. Today I've brought you to a place called Beddgelert. If you've never heard of Beddgelert before, it's a really beautiful village right in the heart of Eryri, and it's a very famous one as well. You can see the famous bridge behind me going over the River Gladwin there. And the reason I brought us to Beddgelert today is to discover the history and the myths here. So for those that have never heard of Beddgelert, what does Beddgelert mean? Well, Beddgelert means Gelert's grave, and nowadays Gelert's grave is synonymous and famous with a very mythical hound from Wales, but originally Beddgelert was nothing to do with a dog. It's going way back, so Beddgelert, it would have been Gelert's grave. Gelert was an old Celtic saint who would have been buried in this area or preached in this area. However, that's not why it's famous now, and we'll go into that in just a second. But if you've never come to Beddgelert, I think it's beautiful. A lot of people love Plas y Coed, and oh, Plas y Coed, it's the most amazing village. Sorry, I keep getting pulled back by Max, I can't let him off here. I hate Plas y Coed. I don't hate Plas y Coed, but I think it's pretty crap. I think it's a plastic village in the sense that there's nothing useful there, and it's totally built for tourism. And whereas Beddgelert, I think it's a better gateway into Eryri than Plas y Coed is, mainly because looking around me now, you know, you've got this stunning river behind me. I'm surrounded by hills. You can see loads of mountains behind me, and you're right in them. And it just feels a little bit more authentic than Plas y Coed to me. Plas is beautiful, but I much prefer this place. I'm going to explain why in just a minute, because I'm going to have to stop because Max is just laying an absolute giant cable at the side of me on the path, so I need to go for a second. So giant log lifted and back onto the walk. So yeah, as I was saying, for me, Beddgelert, so much prettier than Plas y Coed. I mean, look where I am now, just on this bridge where these rivers are meeting, and if I sort of turn around slowly, you might be able to see some of the hills that I'm surrounded by. They call Plas y Coed the gateway to Snowdonia, or the gateway to Eryri, but this to me is the heart of it, you know. You've got all these stunning rivers meeting, you're completely enclosed by hills, bit of myth, bit of legend, uber Welsh feel to it, and some nice pubs as well to have your lunch. So I'd strongly recommend coming to Beddgelert. But let's talk about why we're here today and the myths of Beddgelert and why you may have heard of it. All right, so we're now walking. When you come to Beddgelert, there's a car park in the main part of town. I think it's about £7 to park all day. Again, I forget to look at price. I need to get better at that for you, because I've got a local sort of Gwynedd parking pass. I never worry about it. But yeah, so when you get into Beddgelert, you're going to walk past, or you park near the Royal Goch Hotel, which I'll tell you more about shortly. Then you're going to come towards the famous sort of stone bridge opposite the Llwellyn Pub, or the Prince Llwellyn Pub. And again, he's relevant to where we are today, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. And then you're going to walk down the side of the river, and you're going to come to this really easy path. And honestly, this walk, this day out, so short, so easy, and for absolutely everybody. So wheelchairs, prams, you know, anybody can do this, and you can come and see a cool bit of history. So yeah, you can walk down here. And it was predicted to be right nice today. I've got my shorts on and everything. And then thankfully in the back of the car, I always have like some extra layers, because I didn't really pack a rucksack for today because it's such an easy walk. And as I mentioned in the last video, I've not really got time for a big walk today because I'm moving house. I'm moving house today and tomorrow, and I've got 2 days to get everything moved before I start my new job as well. So yeah, bit of a rush, but I wanted to get out, do a bit of a walk, and Beddgelert is really close to where I'm moving to. As I mentioned on my last video, I'm going right into the heart of Eryri, and I thought, well, let's do a video near that, you know. So yeah, so we're going to be walking down here. And why am I walking down here? Well, we're aiming for Gelert's grave. So we've said Beddgelert means Gelert's grave. Originally it would have been the Celtic patron saint, whereas now it's renowned as Gelert's grave. And Gelert, if you're wondering who he is, was a dog, a really famous dog. And Gelert was an Irish wolfhound. He was the faithful hound to Prince Llwellyn, the last real prince of Wales. And yeah, and one day, Prince Llwellyn, he'd decided that he needed to go and do a bit of hunting, because they were into that, weren't they, back in the day? So off he decided to go hunting. And he wanted to take his missus with him, because he was a modern thinking man like that, you know. He wanted to take his good wife with him. So they said, right, well, let's leave the little un, which was, you know, the heir, and also their firstborn son. They said, let's leave him with the nurse, and we'll get off, do a bit of hunting, then we'll come back, and it'll be a right nice day, you know. So they did that. Anyway, the nurse, being a little rascally, horny lady, upon taking care of the young princeling, she then decided to bugger off with the stable boy for a little windy walk down this very river and get up to whatever it is that, you know, young lovers do at the side of rivers in the middle of nowhere. And that's what they did. Now, you don't obviously leave the heir to the throne unguarded, do you? So whilst he was out hunting, Llwellyn suddenly noticed that his faithful hound, Gelert, his best dog, had disappeared. And the prince was a little bit bemused by this and couldn't really work out where he'd gone. But he carried on with the hunt. Yeah, so Llwellyn, noticing his dog had gone, wondering what was going on, he decided then to head home. So he did. So he headed back to this place where he was living at the time, in this wonderful village. We're going to cut across this field in just a second, and we'll continue the story as we get there. So yeah, so Llwellyn, there'd be a lot of Welsh people upset if I call him Llwellyn. He wasn't something from a Johnny Cash song. Llwellyn, the prince, arrived back home. And when he got back home, he was mortified to find the nurse had gone, and the front room was covered in blood. And his faithful hound Gelert was stood near the baby's cradle, covered in blood and wagging his tail, looking all happy with himself. Now Prince Llwellyn, absolutely overcome with grief and anger, drew his sword, saw Gelert covered in blood, and executed his dog there and then. After he executed the dog, though, he heard a whimper, and he looked underneath the cradle, and there was the heir apparent, his son, totally unharmed, but lying under the pelt of a dead wolf. And what transpired is that Gelert, sensing the prince was in danger, had ran home and had found a wolf near the cradle. Gelert killed the wolf and protected the baby, and as a reward, his master killed him. Now Llwellyn, overcome with grief at killing his faithful hound, then built this place for him. And in the centre of here, I'm going to show you now, are the stones that Llwellyn laid so that Gelert would never be forgotten. And it's right in front of us. Oh, this side, Maxie. And here we are, just in front of me now, is the stones, or the grave, that Prince Llwellyn laid for his faithful hound. And we'll get a little bit closer now so you can see it. Look at this spot though that Llwellyn picked for him, if it is all true. I mean, right in the hills here, it is just so pretty. So pretty. But what isn't so pretty is them dark clouds that are coming over me. As always, the weather forecast in Wales is a little bit wrong today. And it's much colder than it should have been. Which is why, as well, I've come to Beddgelert, because I was going to go higher today. I saw the clouds come in and was like, nope, let's do a low-level video today. Let's show some history. Which is something that I always promise to do anyway, isn't it? A bit of mythology and things like that. But I'm just going to show you this little building as well. So you've seen Gelert's grave just behind me there. And now we're going to go into this old building, which could well have been Llwellyn's house at the time. Let's have a look. Could this have been the remains of Llwellyn's house where the hound met his end? And speaking of hounds, my hound is pulling like mad to get in here. So let's go in. And boom, look at that. There's Gelert himself. Look at that. Look, Maxie loves him. You going saying hello to the doggy, Maxie? Not bothered. He's looking well, the lad, isn't he, for a couple of 1,000-year-old? But yeah, so there we go. We're in what could well have been, I doubt it, but it could well have been Llwellyn's house, more likely an old sheepfold. But yeah, so here we are in what could have potentially been Llywelyn's house, with a wonderful statue of his faithful Irish wolfhound. So here we are. So here we are in potentially what could have been Llywelyn's house, with a wonderful statue of what would have been his hound. But yeah, so who knows? Who knows? Maybe this is where that story happened. But you know, believe it or not, I don't mind whatever you think. But it's certainly worth coming here to discover, you know. And now what we're going to do is carry on this loop, because it's a nice easy loop this. As I say, it's such an accessible walk for everybody to enjoy a bit of nature. Max is certainly enjoying it, keeps stopping. Oh, come on buddy, let's go through here. But yeah, Beddgelert's a wonderful place to visit for everybody, because there's really cool things to do. I mean, you've got a couple of great pubs. I think, to be honest, the Prince Llwellyn these days is much better than the Royal Goat in terms of food and stuff. Accommodation wise, I couldn't tell you. I've never stayed here before. Never needed to, because I live around the corner. But there's some nice shops. The visitor centre's great here. They do some wonderful fudge. And my favourite outdoor shop in all of Snowdonia is in Beddgelert as well, which is a shop called Goch. And it's a wonderful outdoor shop that sells proper good stuff, not just shite. And the people that own it and run it know what they're talking about. They're not just gobshites, you know, so it's really quite good. But yeah, so that's Beddgelert. But what I'm going to do now is just walk across this field, which is a bit wet actually today. And then once we get to the other side, I'll speak to you again, and I'm going to show you, and we're going to talk about whether or not this story of Gelert is true, or if it is just nonsense. Now, obviously, all myths come from somewhere and all legends, so we'll figure it out. But I'll talk to you again when I get to the other side of this field, because it's a bit wet, to be honest. So yeah, I'm walking back across the field now, away from Gelert's grave, or Beddgelert, and I'm going back into the town. So I'll show you a little bit of the town as well, and where some of these stories may just have originated from. Ond hi rwan am sy dysgu Cymraeg. Diolch. So yeah, so for now, time to learn a bit of Welsh again, eh? So I thought we'd learn a couple of words today that are kind of relevant to what I'm up to today, in terms of moving. You know, I'm moving home and things like that. So we have a few different words for home and house in Welsh, depending on where you're putting it in a sentence. But I'll keep it simple for now and just call the house the building, because we have a few different words. But yeah, so house is T-Y. T is house. And you'll see that word lots of places whilst you're walking around Wales. But to say I'm going home is slightly different, and we'll explain that another time. But to move is symud. To move, S-Y-M-U-D, symud, is how you say to move. My new house would be Tŷ Newydd. To move house. So yeah, so there's quite a few little words that we're going to be learning along there. And obviously you've learnt grave today, which was Beth, B-double-D. Not to be confused with what, which is Beth or Beth. So yeah, very similar words. So Beth is what grave. Gets a bit confusing, doesn't it, really? But yeah, so I'm walking back into town now, and let's show you a little bit about that. Well, here's another nice word for you to learn. So this would have been, I assume, the church that the town was originally named after, for Gelert rather than Gelert. And church in Welsh is eglwys. Eglwys. A chapel is a capel, very similar. And then in like Old Welsh, we had another word for church, or sort of parish, which was llan, L-L-A-N. And you'll see loads of places in Wales called llan something or other. So you've got like Llanberis at the bottom of Snowdon, for instance. You know, Peris would have been another Celtic saint back in the day. It would have been Peris, but the soft mutation changes it to a B, which is Beris, and so on and so forth. So all gets a bit mad. It's quite a few words for church, really. So obviously deeply religious people back in the day, but in modern Welsh, I'd probably say eglwys is church. At the side of me, As we walk in, we've got the river, which is an Avon. And water is Dŵr. All very cool. So yeah, so there's your new Welsh words for today, for you if you're studying at home along with me, learning some Welsh words. But here we are, we're back into Beddgelert now properly. So there's the Prince Llwellyn Pub, just on the opposite side of the little river. And I think it's cracking in there. I had a ploughman's lunch the other day in there, unbelievably good. And then this little outdoor shop, Crib Goch, is by far the best outdoor shop I've been to in Eryri. I absolutely love it in there. They do really, really good stuff. Really good stuff. And not overpriced either. Like, obviously you pay dear for certain brands, don't you, but they're just really good in there. Then the other place that's worth visiting, if you come to Beddgelert, and I genuinely, Maxie, get from under my feet, I genuinely send a lot of people here when they're travelling about, send a lot of people to Beddgelert anyway, because I think it's worth visiting, and you know, when tourists are asking me what to do and stuff. But this place behind me now, you might see on the wall in a second, but this place, this pizzeria, let me turn it around, Glazlin it's called, but let me just turn this around so you can see the building itself. So Glazlin Cafe here, and you can see in big old letters on the wall up there, Heven Yar, which is the Welsh for ice cream, Heven Yar, and Heven Yar at that place, oh, Vlasys iawn, very delicious, arguably, and for me very possibly the best ice cream in all of Eryri. So yeah, so if you're looking for some Heven Yar, then I strongly recommend you come to Beddgelert, because it's bloody good, and I do like an ice cream. And as always, you know, I'll always recommend somewhere good to eat because I'm a greedy bugger. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to show you this next place now, which is tied back into the story of Gelert, or the story of Gelert, Llywelyn's Irish wolfhound. So let's go and see what this is about. So this place is quite a famous building in Beddgelert. This is the Royal Goat Hotel. And why have I come to the Royal Goat Hotel? Why am I stood outside this very old school looking place? Well, the reason is, back in the day, the landlord of the Royal Goat, and I'm talking, you know, a good old while ago, but the landlord of the Royal Goat had been reading up on a bit of Celtic mythology, just like I do. You know, everybody likes a bit of mythology when you live in an area like Wales. But the landlord of the Royal Oak noticed this recurring theme in Celtic mythology, and it was always about a faithful hound, a faithful dog. These stories go back hundreds and thousands of years. You know, there's loads and loads of stories like this in Celtic mythology and mythology around the world. So the landlord of the Royal Goat then decided to adapt the story slightly and centre it around this village, Beddgelert, in the hopes of increasing tourism. Well, it bloody worked, didn't it? Because Beddgelert is now an incredibly popular tourist destination, with thousands of people a year coming to rub the little statue of the faithful hound Gelert. But the fact is, it's probably all bollocks. You know, and way back what I said at the beginning about Beddgelert being Gelert's grave, the Celtic saint, is much more likely than an entire village being named after a faithful hound who may or may not have killed a wolf. However, let's keep the story going. Don't tell everyone it's nonsense, because we need your money, tourists, to keep coming to this area. But there you go. So that's the story of Gelert's grave and Beddgelert. Super short video today, guys. As always, don't forget to like, to share, and please do subscribe. And again, thank you so much. We've got over 200 subscribers now. It's so awesome for me, that it really means a lot. So thank you to all. Remember, it's free to subscribe. I'm sorry it's not a very long video today, but as I say, I'm in the middle of a house move. So I've not got all the time in the world, you know. I'm dashing back and forth trying to get stuff sorted. But as promised, on my next videos, you'll see where I'm living. You'll see a little bit more about what I'm doing. And I'll tell you a bit more as well. But for now, guys, thank you for joining me in Beddgelert. Thank you for listening to the stories, whether or not it's made up or not, who cares. But as always, thanks for joining me at Right Nice Places, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Bye for now. Ta-ra, everyone.